Welcome to a short preview of this Screencasts Online video tutorial. Now, one of the problems with covering Apple products over time is that we end up with a series of tutorials, some covering the basics of the particular application and some just adding in minor updates that appear after the original app was launched. Whilst this is great to keep up to date with apps, it does make it difficult for members to know where to start if they are starting from scratch. So as an experiment, I'm going to create a number of foundation tutorials, starting with this one on iMovie 10 for macOS, and it's aimed at anyone who is starting to use iMovie from scratch or needs a refresher if they haven't used it for a while. So whilst it may not be as in-depth as a typical Screencasts Online tutorial, it will get you up and running without having to refer to previous tutorials. So let's take a look at the basics of iMovie 10.1.9. iMovie is a free application downloadable from the Mac App Store. It's also included with all new Macs. It's based on the same code base as Final Cut Pro, so it has some very advanced features for a free application. I've already downloaded and installed iMovie, so the first thing I'm going to do is to run it. Now, the first time we've run it, we have this new dark user interface. Across the top, we have 3 tabs: Media, Projects and Theatre. You can toggle between these by pressing the number keys 1 for Media, 2 for Projects and 3 for Theatre. iMovie Theatre is a way of sharing your finished projects via iCloud, so they'll appear on all devices. Let's take a quick look at Projects, but we'll come back to Projects. This is where you create new projects, whether they be movies or trailers. More about that later. And this is also the screen where you manage your projects as well. Let's press 1 to go across to the Media tab. Now, this is where you can control and populate iMovie with media. Now, this screen is divided into 3 sections. There is a sidebar down the side. We can actually remove that by clicking on this icon here and bring it back. There is this import panel. This is also a browser as well. So when we have imported media, we can browse the media here. And then we have a viewer, so we can have a look at the media once we've imported it. That's just a quick preview of one of this week's Apple-related tutorials from Screencasts Online. Screencasts Online is your premium source of Apple-related video tutorials. All of our members get access to brand new, up-to-date tutorials each week, as well as unlimited access to our entire video archive full of Mac and iOS-related tutorials. You can stream and download all of our videos on your Mac, iPad and iPhone, and even your Apple TV using the members-only Screencasts Online Apple TV app. Membership also includes a complimentary subscription to the digital Screencasts Online monthly magazine, published each month and packed with videos, articles, reviews, as well as hints and tips covering all aspects of the Mac, iPad, iPhone, and all of the other fantastic Apple products. So, if you're ready to start getting the most out of your Apple devices, visit screencastsonline.com today and become a Screencasts Online member.